Hello, everybody. I am Else. If you do not know who I am one of the best heroes in North America. I play in tournaments, I play in high elo, I'm decently good at the game, maybe tier 2, tier 1.5. Not that I think that distinction matters. But this is an intro to a new series I want to work on, catered towards mid-level players, people who are plateaued and don't know how to get to the next level. So the reason why I'm making this video is a lot of the videos about ER and educational content about ER is catered towards newer players, right? So routing guides, character guides, things like that, which are fairly successful and are useful because those things are complicated. Routing is hard, characters are increasingly more complex, right? But specifically, I don't think there's any content in ER about the higher level ideas and how to improve at the game outside of your first like 500 hours of routing and understanding transitions and characters and things like that. So, getting started, this video will be about how to think about ER and orienting yourself to maybe a higher level of thinking and game plan, right? So, this is not a macro guide. This is not about snowballing or building a transition list that is like good for you. This is not about anything like that. I can make a part two. I probably will for that specifically. But this video, and shoutouts to Dota PowerPoints for inspiration for this video. Why this video is important, and this video is about orienting to high level ideas. Because most people, myself included, when playing the game at first, think it's just about surviving for 24 minutes and they're playing on autopilot. And on the other side of those 24 minutes, you either get dopamine or you lose RP. The important thing is that there's 7 other teams, right? And this sort of like autopiloted way of playing doesn't interact with the 7 other teams and largely the win con, right? Because spacebar isn't working. Everything in Eternal Return is designed to help you kill the 7 other teams. No exceptions. Thus spake Dota 2. Wait, wrong channel. Anyway, uh, so we can take a very small idea, like consoles, and extrapolate outwards on how we can use this to win a game, right? So consoles, very trivially, are very good, right? It's not hard to understand why they're good. They give you 3 to 4 words for free. Actually, not for free. They pay you to take it. And depending on the zone, the words could be either hot garbo or the best thing you've ever seen. That's just how it is. But very trivially, free vision, sure, I'll take it, right? But more importantly than the vision itself is the map assumptions and map reads that you can make from it, right? Because the EV of the console, of taking a console, increases with game length, right? So the expected value that you get from the vision increases with game length because there's less zones overall, right? So if there's 7 teams and 12 zones, it's not as impactful nor important than if there's 7 teams and 5 zones and 2 of those are turning red in 30 seconds, right? So that's a very different impact on the game. So late game, taking a console for a vision and controlling one of the last like 5 zones left is very, very important, right? So if you take consoles, you gain a lot of info on where teams are, maybe in that zone, but you also gain info on where they're not, right? And where thus they have to be elsewhere. And you can use that info to make map reads, have better map awareness, and thus win the game, right? So again, we're focused on the 7 other teams in the map and how we can kill them, right? So we gain info, we make map reads, map assumptions, and we enact a game plan to kill them. That's the whole orientation, right? We are orienting to this 3-step process. Now, this can be linear, this can be circular. It could look non-linearly. It could look however, right? Maybe when we enact a game plan, the best way to kill a team is to gain more info, right? So we enact the game plan to gain more info so that we can make better assumptions, right? But largely, this orientation is to gain map awareness, right? That's the high level idea here, is that we want to be oriented as much as possible to where teams are and how to kill them. So first, how do we gain info, right? So very trivially, consoles, right? I just spoke about it. Consoles, one of the easiest ways. Your own wards and recons are another way of getting info on the ground. The number of teams and players, pings and transport pings, VLSs, CCTVs that are taken by enemy teams, or kiosks in the middle of nowhere. These are all info. This is all info. F2 and F3 is a very underrated one. Your teammates are wards. So if you're split, hit F2 and F3 to see what your teammates are saying, because that is very, very impactful. And the higher level you get, the more you want to be oriented around what your team is doing as well. But your teammates have info and are getting you info as well, right? Objectives that are spawning on the map are another example, right? And importantly for objectives, when they are taken is another piece of info, right? So if a box is taken instantly, then like, no funny business. But if it was taken 10, 20 seconds late, either two teams were fighting over it or a team was late there. And both of those are very important pieces of info and are assumptions you can make based on pings, right? So if you see combat pings in SIM and then 20 seconds later hospital box is taken, you know SIM has no farm in it and there's a team in hospital. But if you don't see any combat pings, hospital box is taken 20 seconds later, the info that you get is that two teams were fighting there, right? And maybe one team has lost now that the box is gone, and one of them is running, right? So I gained info, I made an assumption. There is one weak team somewhere in the area, maybe in stream, maybe in sim, and one team that is now up 250 credits from the box, right? More examples, words on ground, dead animals. The direction the dead animals die in is another important one. Day 2 global scan, potential wick spawns, right? It could spawn in these two zones, or in a minute it's spawning in this zone, etc., etc. These are all examples of info that you can gain in Eternal Return, day to night cycle over and over again. So from that, we need to make map reads. Examples, right? Making educated guesses on where teams are and where they're likely to go are both examples of what I call team tracking. So team tracking is two ideas. One is tracking one team as they move across the map. Maybe this is a very strong team like a Wick that you want to track, and is also tracking all the teams that you can on the map, maybe in less detail, right? Less fidelity. So, is that the right word? I don't even know. Anyway, so if like a team takes Wick in school and they walk to hotel and you see combat pings in a hotel, and then likely they're probably going to go to forest next, right? In like a funnel sort of map, right? They're very not likely to return back to school unless it turns daytime and they want like wolves, like one wolf pack or whatever, right? Very unlikely to occur, right? So you can have educated guesses on where one team is likely to go, or based on maybe objectives that are spawning, you can make a rough estimate that there's 3 teams top side, 4 teams bot side, or based on the hospital box example, there's 2 teams in X zone, right? And you can also make assumptions about which teams are strong and weak, right? So Wick is, again, an obvious example. But if a team takes a red box from a flare gun, or from Wick timing, right? Or they come out of a rift late, or they took Omega, or just bought triple force core day 2, are all examples of like a power spike where a team might be stronger than you if you didn't get a comparable exchange during that timing, right? There's a whole bunch of other examples I could list here. These are just some on how to have a good map read. And then after that, game plans, right? So for you to be able to enact a game plan, your comp has to have a win con. Now, it doesn't have to be very clearly defined, just there has to be one. It has to be executable most of the time, right? And the most important thing is you repeat the mantra, how do we win this game? Right? Because again, the goal of Eternal Return is to kill the 7 other teams on the map. That's the goal. That's the only way you win, really. You can gain RP through getting second with 15 TK, but you don't win if you get to, second place 15 TK, right? So how do we win this game? Some examples: if you're ahead, seek out weak teams, right? Kill them or force resources out of them. That could look like forcing them to use gadget energy to fly out, or forcing red timer to TP, or get a Lumi res deep in red, things like this. If you're behind, you need to find a way to come back in the game, right? So you win by maybe sneaking Wicca Line, or sneaking Omega when two teams are fighting, or things like this, right? Or finding a cheese angle or a vision play that people aren't expecting. So most people like know bush cheeses as vision plays, but this could look like a one circle like Theodore trick. If you know, you know, right? Place a ward in nighttime and you stand on top of the word and you wait for somebody to walk into your vision and you root them and kill them, right? These sort of things are very, very strong. As you come back, right, they give you a gold swing back in your favor because they go minus 200, you get plus some credits and maybe an objective for killing and pushing a team off, and that's a way to win the game. If you have Wick buff, this is important. If you have Wick buff, you want to push teams into each other, right? You can force 3Ps that way, you can gain vision through the enemy team that you're pushing, right? Because if they're going in a straight line and all of a sudden divert and look weird in their right clicks, you know there's a team on the other side of them, right? And if you don't have Wick buff, where is the Wick team? Like, how do you outlive it, right? Because it's hard to eliminate another team if they're up 900 gold on you and have a buff that, is as strong as Wick buff. Another example of how you win this game is a Jas super play. So if you don't know, a Jas super play is where there's two temporary final zones and 3 teams left, maybe 4 teams, sometimes it can happen too, and all of the other teams are on the other temporary zone, right? And then you fly over there right before the zones close, and you force a 3P that is favorable to you, and you try to like down as many bodies and reset and kill as many people as you can. And basically it's a force 3P that most of the time auto wins you a game, right? So these are all examples. Again, this isn't every example, but these are some examples of how you can enact a game plan from the map awareness and map read that you have, right? So going forth in your games, think about how can you gain more info, try to piece that info together to get the bigger picture of where teams are, and then intentionally think at every step, how do I win this game, right? If you need one more 4 score, think about how do I get one more 4 score, right? If I need maybe a blood sample in order to hit my biggest power spike in order to kill a matchup that I struggle with, how do I get a VF blood in this game, right? Maybe I need to ping to my teammate, like, hey, can you buy me a VF in a minute? I'll buy you your 4 score here, right? Or I'll buy your 4 score in a minute. And then you kind of farm and play passive until that power spike, right? Intentionally, at every step, think about how do you win the game? And again, orient that. What is the win con, right? The win con is killing the 7 other teams, right? So how do you eventually kill the 7 other teams? Because that could look like a trigger sort of comp where you're just playing very passive and scaling to late game and then you win from final zones, or you could look very, very aggressive and try to kill people as early as possible with power spikes that they can't rival, right? So thank you. If you watched this entire video, if you have suggestions for other videos that I can make in the future, please leave a comment. My next planned video is about vision specifically. I think vision is one of the things that mid-level players struggle the most with. I can look at a vision contribution graph from game to game and instantly kind of tell, like, this is a gap in knowledge of a player. Even at a higher level, I think people struggle with vision. So I'm going to talk about vision habits and why it's important to have good vision and things like that. My next video. Thank you for watching. Again, if you have any comments or suggestions, please, I am open to feedback, and these videos aren't that hard to make. There's no scripting, no editing. I just make a PowerPoint and then rant for 15 minutes, which I love to do. So regardless, thank you for watching.